Welcome back.
We're back, baby.
That was awful. I apologize for that very ominous intro.
There's a reason why it's called the Awful Takes Podcast.
It was pretty awful. Welcome back, everyone. I'm here. We're here.
Yeah.
My name's Nabahi.
Hello, I'm Wallied from Sir Gator Productions.
I'm trying to talk in a lower tone today because I notice sometimes when I'm, especially with the Superman thing, I was very excited. And when I talk about something I'm excited about, my voice naturally gets higher. And that's when the insecurities start to set in. And that's when I'm like, I can't listen to this. So I'm going to try to stay as relatively calm as I can.
Yeah, but no mistakes.
Just welcome back, accidents. Everyone. Episode 25.
Yep, 25.
25.
It's perfect since it's our Christmas special.
Oh, yeah. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Happy holidays to everybody, whenever you guys celebrate.
We have a amazing movie to talk about today, but we will get over to that in a little bit. If you guys are joining us for the first time, welcome. If this is your repeat viewing of the things we do, thank you so much. And if you're joining us on YouTube or Spotify, thank you for any ratings or likes, comments, things like that. We look forward to that. And feel free to check out either of our other channels in the description. I don't think mine's in there yet, but I'll send it to you so we can put it in there.
I was like, what is this channel? Where can people find Nabahi?
Yeah. But thank you guys so much. It's been a great year. There's a little bit of movie news I would like to talk about.
All right.
We're going to be doing the Superman trailer part 2. Just kidding. No, if you are looking for our reaction on that, we actually recorded a separate video for it that's up right now.
Yeah. You had a lot to say about that Superman trailer.
I know. I didn't expect it to be that long, but thank you guys for indulging me on that. It really was just 30 minutes of me fanboying. So I appreciate it. You guys checking that out. So if you're looking for our reactions on that, feel free to go and watch that video. There was a little bit of interesting news that I had read about that concerns a movie that I know it's definitely one of my most anticipated movies. And so far the release date is yet to be announced, which some people might find concerning. I think now in today's day and age, I say this a lot, but I think people are used to quick response times on things. Mm-hmm. So I feel like when something kind of takes its time longer than normal, it kind of sets people in almost like a panic. But we got to remember these movies, things we enjoy, a lot of work goes into them. And the movie I'm talking about is Beyond the Spider-Verse. It is the sequel to Across the Spider-Verse that has been in development, I would say, for a while. And I swear I was under the intention that while they were making the second one, they were working on this third one. I mean, did you hear something like that?
I did hear something similar to that, and I believe it was even supposed to be like a part 1 and part 2 thing at like one point where it was going to come out the year after, like a Infinity War Endgame type of thing.
Yeah, and a little bit of news came out that I guess they attached 2 directors to it, which to me,
it's kind of surprising.
It is surprising. I mean, maybe they were already working on the movie and they were just waiting for official announcements. I don't know exactly. However, I know when people are hearing this news, obviously it's positive. People are excited. Directors are attached, but people are also kind of nervous. Like, wait, what have they been working on for these past couple years? Like, did the story go through changes? Did the work that they were working on, was it not up to their expectations? Did it get scrapped? Mm-hmm. So naturally, a lot of people start kind of jumping the gun a little bit. However, the directors are by the names of Bob Piroschetti and Justin K. Thompson. They're going to be a director duo for this we're assuming this last Spider-Verse film. Looking at their credits, obviously Justin K. Thompson was a director on Across the Spider-Verse, and Bob Piroschetti has a longer filmography, but he was the director on the first one. So I guess it's like a amalgamation of the two coming back for this final film. I'm not too concerned. I'm under the impression that they just want to get this right. I think that's why this is taking longer than normal. And I think the standards, obviously, when the second one came out, they got raised because a lot of people put the second one on the same level as the first one. So already your expectations for this last one, man, it's high.
Yeah, it's very, very high.
Wallied, what do you think with these guys officially announced as directors? Are you nervous? Are you kind of worried about the story and everything? What are your thoughts?
I think it's great that they're bringing back the first two directors of the Spider-Verse movies. It does give me faith, especially because they will have at least one vision, that they can both at least hopefully agree on, and I'm just going to be very patient, still even more, just to see what they have cooking up, especially hearing that the last one had 1,000 animators,
Holy crap.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see what vision they do with it, how the directors will kind of portray this third film, hopefully stick the landing with the third in the trilogy, but, yeah, no, I'm definitely very excited for sure. I'm just surprised it kind of took them this long to announce directors for sure, but yeah, no, I think it's great that they're coming back to this project.
Yeah. I'm under the impression that I'm not really panicking. I if anything, I'm excited hearing these names.
Yeah.
Because I love the first one and I love the second one. So to see kind of them taking both and putting them together for this last part, again, I'm assuming it's the last part. I don't know.
At least me probably of this trilogy.
Yeah, it gets me really excited. And if they can just match on the same level as the first two, we're probably going to be looking at one of the greatest superhero trilogies of all time, if not the greatest. I know multiple people who have Into the Spider-Verse as their favorite comic book film ever made.
It's definitely up there for me.
I know for me personally, it's my favorite Spider-Man film ever made.
And that too, yeah.
So granted, this third one, we have high expectations for it. And not only because of, the quality of the first two, but because that second one ended on such a grand note.
Yeah.
So many people I know when that movie ended, it was like, wow, that was amazing. But I want the conclusion, So obviously it is a little hard to know that we have to wait a little bit longer. But however, I think with the response of these first two, I think they themselves are kind of holding themselves to a higher standard. I don't think this is simply just, let's finish it out. I think they want to surprise people still after the first two. So I'm excited. Obviously, I know the original date was supposed to be
March
7 months ago this year.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, when it got pushed back, I'm pretty sure the date was somewhere in 2025 or 2026.
And then it got delayed indefinitely.
Yeah.
And they were just TBA.
So now they don't have a date, which I'm not nervous about. I'd rather them just kind of
take their time, especially with the stories that were coming out about the second one and how some of the animators were getting overworked and how they were still trying to fix issues, even after it was in theaters and things like that. I'm just hoping they just take their time with this one and try not to just rush it out,
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that I'm kind of hoping for with this.
Exactly. So not really nervous. I understand why people are quick to kind of freak out, because I think in normal movie type situations, this would maybe be a red flag. However, these guys, they know what they're doing. They
don't really have much to prove.
Yeah,
I feel like,
it's not like they attach two complete unknowns or something, then
that would
I'd
be a
be
little
like,
bit
"Oh."
more worrying. Like, okay,
Yeah.
but we'll just have to wait and see. You know.
However,
But,
when the making of this film does come out, I want to know, what was it like past the second one? Were they working on this third one? Did they scrap stuff? Things like that. I want to know more about that, because I'm under the impression that maybe they did kind of rework some stuff. Maybe some things weren't working, and then they had to
scrap it,
start
maybe,
over.
yeah. Which is always sucks, but you know what? It's better if you just kind of just figure it out and just try to like piece it out together a little better.
Exactly. But we'll keep our ears open for a release date, I guess.
Yeah, and if any more news comes out about it, we'll definitely talk about it on here.
Yeah. All right, guys. We are talking about a Christmas movie, right, Wallied?
Yeah, a Christmas movie. So I gave Nabahi the recommendation of a film called The Holdovers by Alexander Payne. But yeah, technically this film it's pretty simple. It is about a school teacher named Paul Hunnam, played by Paul Giamatti, who is basically forced to hold over with these kids that can't go to their homes for like a boarding school type of thing. They have to basically stay at the school until their parents can come and pick them up. And pretty much all of them go except for one of them, whose name is Angus Tully, who's played by Dominic Sessa, and also his first role ever. And so, yeah, it's a pretty simple story. It's nothing that's reinventing the wheel. It's nothing like super crazy. And yeah, I heard about this film last year through festival season. It premiered at Toronto International Film Festival, and it got some buzz, and it got some even Oscar buzz later that year. And I wasn't that interested in the project at first. It looked okay from what I saw of like the previews and just some of the things I was hearing about the film. I was like, that just seems like Oscar bait type of thing. But a friend of mine recommended it to me a couple months later, because it was he was going through like all the Oscar films, and he decided to recommend this one to me, and I gave it a watch. I wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt, and I was very surprised by this film. I was not expecting the things that were going to happen, and I was surprised how simplistic everything was compared to some of this other guy's films. So I guess to kind of give a bit of like a crash course in this, Alexander Payne is a director I wasn't too fond of before seeing this movie. The only other film I had seen of his was Downsizing, his film before The Holdovers, which I've talked about a bit on the podcast before, and I don't really enjoy that movie all that much. I think it's kind of wasted potential, unfortunately. So already I just kind of was like, I don't know, not really like the biggest fan of this director and everything, but it took me by surprise, and I ended up really loving it. I saw it a second time like a few days after, and I just was like, wow, this hit even harder than the first time I saw it. And eventually I saw one other film of his, Election, which is also really good. Nothing like this movie. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was kind of my whole process with The Holdovers, and kind of my skepticism, and that skepticism pretty much being thrown out of the window after the film was over. And yeah, so I have some things to say about it, and I have a lot of things that I feel like are really interesting that Alexander Payne and the writer David Hemmingson goes for in the film. But Nabahi, I know this was your first time seeing it, so what was kind of your overall thoughts and impressions going into this?
Going into it, I was out of the awards circuit time period when this was coming out. I wasn't keeping track of, awards, anything, what movies were nominated, I guess. So I didn't really know too much about it. When Wallied was mentioning it, I kind of had an image in my head of what it was, but I didn't exactly pinpoint it. Then, when I loaded it up and started to watch it, I was just like, this is interesting. I was just trying to pinpoint, I guess, what this movie was going to be. Obviously, when it starts out, there's that group of kids and everything. I kept thinking like, oh, it's going to center around them. maybe the teacher, things like that. And this movie just kept surprising me as it was going on. It kept kind of subverting expectations of what I thought it was going to be about. Right away, I guess it just really was catching me off guard with the things it was saying, with the unraveling of storylines, plot lines. And by the end of it, I just felt very surprised that this movie affected me in such a good way. And it really just kind of caught me off guard. I don't think this movie really tries to impress you all that much. However, I think in them having a more laid back, kind of calm story and things like that, it hits hard and it does surprise you, but they don't go for it in such a grandiose kind of fashion. You know, there isn't any over the top acting moments. There isn't anything like that. I think in this movie, the subtleties for me were just really effective, you know, and that's usually my problem when it comes to movies that try the subtle approach. Is sometimes I feel like the effectiveness comes at a sacrifice, unfortunately. However, with this movie, that wasn't the case. This movie was very subtle in the things and stuff it was doing, yet it was very effective in the emotions, in the performances, things like that. And overall, the package that I ended up getting was just amazing. And I can't wait to watch this movie again. I can't wait to tell people about it. It's definitely up there now for me with kind of Christmas movies and heartwarming stories in general. You know, I really, really enjoyed it.
That's great to hear. For me, one of my favorite things about the film, and I feel like it's just the overall heart of the film, is Angus and Paul's relationship throughout, you know. For sure, you know, it kind of has like the whole enemies to friends type of thing, but it's so interesting to see a teacher who's kind of more of like a hard ass. And you see as the film goes along, he starts to kind of be more sympathetic towards Angus. And it's something that I really, really appreciated as the film went along. And I loved that progression throughout. And especially Angus too, you know, he kind of comes across as like a jerk, you know, he has like kind of like a bit of an attitude problem. And you kind of see throughout the film, and even like when they get to Boston, you kind of see they're kind of the same, you know, they kind of have a lot more in common than they even realize. Yeah. And that was something I was just very surprised watching it the first time. I was like, I really love that aspect of the film. And I love that that's like really the main focus of the film rather than having the other kids in play. You know, I don't feel like it would have worked as much.
Same. I felt quite a big relief when the other kids were out of the story.
Especially that one that was kind of fighting with Angus. I was pretty annoyed with.
I was like, this guy's going to bug me. And that's the thing. Like, I just assumed the story was going in one direction. And when they all left, I was surprised. I was like, okay, this is now I'm kind of connecting a little bit. I will say with those kids, some of their performances weren't really hooking with me. Yeah. And that's why I was like kind of glad when they left. And again, when it's setting up that first part and shows all the different sides to these different kids, I was like, okay, we're going to get a story about these guys. They're here at the school. Yeah. And
like a Dead Poets Society type of thing. Yeah.
And I felt very relieved when it was just the teacher, student, and then obviously the lunch lady. I was like, wow, this is nice, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the lunch lady, she was definitely one of my favorite characters in the film. I really loved her story a lot. And I think rewatching it for the third time for this podcast, it's like, I kind of realized what the film was mainly going at is that all three of these people, they're all very lonely and they don't really have much family. Like, obviously Angus's family is kind of broken pretty much. Paul's the teacher doesn't really have any family, and then the lunch lady doesn't really have her son. She's going through like a loss, especially at like a time where, you know, it's usually supposed to be pretty jolly, but obviously I really loved that portrayal a lot of just like seeing all these people, even though they are going through a lot and they are very lonely around this time, they all just come together and they all almost kind of form like a bit of like a sort of school family of sorts, you know? Mm-hmm. And it also just kind of makes me appreciate too, of like, sometimes your blood family maybe isn't the best, but I feel like you can make a family even just with your friends or the people that you get to know along your journey and things like that. Mm-hmm. How did you kind of take that away?
No, I agree. I think having that side of things, especially kind of it's not too centered around Christmas, but obviously that is like a big theme, speaks a lot and says a lot, because usually a big theme of Christmas movies is that family aspect. But to treat it in the lens of your family can be the people that you grow close to, you know, it doesn't need to be related by blood, things like that, you know, says a lot. And again, there's a lot of heartwarming moments in the movie that lend to that, you know, like him taking him to Boston, doing things like that. Really just shows, or him getting the Christmas tree, you know, just all that stuff. It really is just like, okay, this is working for me, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that they are not family. You know, this story works because these guys are all separated from their own family, you know, yet they come together at this time when you need your family, you know? Very great. And really smart to do that in the lens of a Christmas movie, because it's usually what these movies kind of focus on, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I really enjoyed that. And there's a lot of moments in this movie that just totally surprised me. It started out with me not being 100% on board. And by the end I was like, no, that worked. And I want to rewatch it. Because again, in that first 10, 15 minutes, I was like, yeah, it's cool and everything, but it wasn't grabbing me. However, as it goes on, it's just like you get invested in these characters, you get invested in the way they're portrayed, and you grow to really, really like them and care about them. And again, there's no over-the-top kind of acting moments. There's no over-the-top, you know, crazy dialogue sequences or anything like that. This movie does go for some emotional stuff. However, again, it's subtle. Like it doesn't draw it out. It doesn't, you know, over focus on the emotions, you know, which I feel like in terms of these kind of broken people, the emotions would be a little bit more restrained, you know, especially in terms of Paul Giamatti's character. It's not a first time Christmas for him alone. Like he's been going through this for years, you know, so he doesn't have those kind of showy emotions, you know. He's already kind of done and processed all this, and now he's looking at this kid and realizing, okay, this kid's similar to me, you know, maybe there's something I can do to kind of set him on a different path, you know. And I like it. I like that the story goes for that. Like again, this movie really, really surprised me.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I also just really surprised me about it is just how far it leans into like the 70s aesthetic. Even at like the beginning, you get like the kind of like 70s like title banners and things like that. And I love just how the film really kind of sucks you into like the world of like, it is like the early 70s. It feels like a VHS tape you would find in the 70s of like a random Christmas film. And I really loved that like technical aspect of the film, of like the film grain that they use and like just the costumes and everything. It really just sucks you into that atmosphere really, really well, that I really appreciated a lot. And I was very surprised that the film went in that direction, you know, because it feels like this film could take place at any time, but it really does, like, I feel like suck you into that 70s aesthetic really, really well. Especially,
I'm not too big of a fan of 70s aesthetic at all. Like, if I'm being completely honest, I don't like the look of that type of stuff. I don't know why, it just bothers me.
Really?
Yeah, maybe it was because my grandma's house had a lot of 70s decor or something, and it just, Yeah, I don't really care for it. However, with this movie, it didn't bother me. I actually really liked it. I liked the way it was filmed. I liked the way everything was lit. I liked the costume designs. Everything worked, and it kind of provided you with like a warm kind of feeling, you know? And again, normally I don't care for this type of stuff. And for some reason with this movie, it really, really worked for me.
Yeah, definitely. Not only that, but I love just how muted too, like a lot of the colors are throughout. Also, you know, you have a lot of reds and yellows and browns and even like grays and whites, but they all fit really well. And I love just how like just those colors pop out throughout. One thing I wanted to mention too is just how hilarious this film is. There's a lot of surprisingly really funny moments throughout that you wouldn't expect in a movie like this, but obviously one of my favorite moments is where Angus goes to like the gym, and obviously it's still under construction, and he decides to like jump on like the little trampoline thing, and he ends up like dislocating his shoulder. And I love just like the teacher's face that he makes. And I love how he's like trying to like scrape the snow off his car, and they're like driving so fast to like get to the hospital and everything. It was just such a hilarious moment. And I also too in this scene, I love that it just shows Angus's character that like on the outside, he may seem like a jerk, and he's like very like kind of like snarky type of person, but you see on the inside, like he lies to basically prevent the teacher from getting fired. And I feel like it really shows his character really well. Of like, you know, even though he doesn't really care for this teacher, he's still just almost kind of like a caring person on the inside.
The humor, I agree. It really comes out of nowhere. And when it does, it's something you wouldn't normally think of. And it's very funny, you know, like you said with that scene. I remember just laughing. I was like, what the? I was not expecting that. But it's also humor that relates to that teacher-student kind of relationship, you know? Yeah. Like him just watching him run around. He's trying to get him to stop. And obviously the kid's just doing what he wants to. And it's like, damn, like you can kind of feel for this teacher, and like he really has no control. Like this kid is in this situation where he just doesn't want to be there, so he's just trying to make the most of it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yet the teacher is still kind of in that, you know, supervisor role that he has to watch this kid. Like it's not just a vacation, you know? And there's some funny moments pertaining to that, because it's obviously very much that the teacher doesn't want it. He wants to do what he wants to do, but now he has to watch this kid and everything.
Babysit, basically. Yeah.
And the character of Paul has a lot of funny lines, and the way he talks and everything is just really original, you know, like the way the character is portrayed. Obviously, he's in this mentor kind of role for this kid and everything. But he has, I would say, compared to most of his colleagues and stuff, he has a love for what he does. You know, he cares about history, and you can tell by the way he talks and the way he carries himself, like that is who he is, you know?
Yeah.
And he has very like funny lines. Like there's this scene where Angus and them are talking about this teacher that you can tell her and Paul have a connection. And obviously with the kid, he's like, you two have chemistry, you know? And Paul just doesn't really see it in that way. Yeah. And Angus kind of pushes a little further. He's like, seeing her like this, like we don't normally see her like this. I think she's pretty attractive. And then Paul just very simply breaks it down in such a funny way. He's like, listen, you hormonal vulgarian, that woman deserves your respect, not your erotic speculation. I don't know why. That line just had me dying. I thought it was so funny.
There's a bit where they go to Boston. He's all, there's like this prostitute that shows up, but obviously he's like not interested. And he's all, I don't really like candy canes all that much.
And just like, again, the writing with Paul's character, I just love it. Like he has a lot of, again, he's in that mentor role, and it's like, again, he's like trying to get this kid to not follow in those same footsteps. He very much sees this as a chance to kind of guide this kid into his adult life. Don't be afraid to make connections, make those mistakes and things like that. And it's a stark contrast from how we view the teacher in the beginning, because he very much is, no, you messed up. That's your problem. Like,
Yeah.
and when we see more of the backside of Angus's kind of story and his parents and everything like that, you can tell that Paul has an effect on that. Like, Paul cares, and vice versa. Like, there's a moment where Paul's out there and he sees some of his older colleagues and stuff, and they kind of go through this whole charade story thing, which I thought was really, really funny.
Yeah.
And the
Ancient
moment,
cameras.
yeah, and then the moment past that, when the kid's like, well, what was that? What were we doing? And Paul he has some funny lines in that. I'm trying to find them. Let me see if I can. Wallied, I didn't know if you had anything you wanted to expand on.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to expand on just the overall message of the film and how it's portrayed, of just being kind to one another, especially during the holidays, because it's like you really don't know what someone's going through. Sometimes they can come across as maybe being mean, or maybe they can come across in a certain way, that you may find annoying, but sometimes maybe that's just a way for them to cope, and maybe that's just how they kind of deal with those emotions. Sometimes some other people have a harder time with dealing with those emotions per se, but I really love how the film portrays that message of like just being kind to one another, especially during the holidays, because like Angus in the film, or like the lunch lady in the film, Mary, you see they're going through a loss. They don't have like the best family life, or personal life. And I really appreciated that about the film a lot, of just, hey, you don't know what that person's going through, and that's okay. But just try to be there for them as much as you can,
Yeah, very poignant message. Again, the movie goes for those kind of big swings, but again, they don't feel that way. They never in this movie does it feel out of place. Like, we got to wrangle you in somehow, so we're going to throw this emotion. It feels natural. And the way it unravels, again, it's subtle. It's not over the top. I feel like when the movie's about to get there, and it is going to become like, okay, this is a big moment, this is a big thing, it pulls back, But I did find that moment I was talking about, after he meets this guy who he went to school with. Angus found out that obviously he was accused of being plagiarizing his friend's work and everything, and the exchange they have in this shop is really funny. Yet it's almost like a breakdown of Paul's character, because this whole time he's been saying Barton men don't lie, this and this. And Angus is smart enough to kind of question him on that, and towards the end of the exchange, we find out that Paul's character was kicked out of Harvard, and Angus is like, wait, so you got kicked out of Harvard for cheating? And then Paul's like, no, I got kicked out of Harvard for hitting him. And Angus is like, you hit him? Like what? Like you punched him out? And Paul's like, no, I hit him with a car. And I started laughing. And Angus is all, you got kicked out of Harvard for hitting a guy with a car? And Paul's like, by accident. And again, like the humor, it's so left of field. It's so not what you were thinking was going to happen. Like when he ran into that colleague, like I didn't know like that whole story was going to be unraveled. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, that's such a like subversion of expectations. But again, not in a grand sort of way. It very, very left of field to the context of this story. And I love the movie for that. And there's so many good messages in this movie. There's so many heartfelt moments, and by the end of it, it's just like, damn, I want to see more with these characters. They really nailed the characters. I could watch another hour of these guys, you know, talking and everything. And again, I think that's what I love in movies is when the characters feel genuine, they feel real, and you sell me on that. And past that point, it's like, you can literally give me more of this and I would not complain. Like, you got the characters down so well.
Yeah.
That's one of my biggest pluses of the movie is the writing for each of them, and the acting that goes behind them is just top notch.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because the movie is like 2 hours and 12 minutes, and you kind of think at some points like, oh, this might drag here and there, but like it surprisingly goes by really quickly, other than maybe like the first 20 minutes, you know? It's kind of crazy just how great the chemistry is with these two main leads in the film, and especially the lunch lady, of course, you know, and just her little quirky lines that I really loved a lot, you know, especially her trying to push Paul to go to like the Christmas party. She's like, you got me nervous now. But I really love that. I love that pace of the film. It really does feel like you could watch some of these characters for like hours and you would just not get tired of it. And I wanted to get to a moment that I really love in the film of where Angus goes to meet his dad, and it's not what he expected. You know, you see that his illness has gotten worse. And I love the scene that comes after where Paul pretty much explains to him that, like, you're your own person, you know, you're not like your father, you know, because Angus, you can tell he beats himself up for the fact that he feels like he's going to turn into his dad. And I love just the message he gives him. It made me nearly cry watching it, was where he just tells him, you're your own man, you know. And I love that little speech he kind of gives to Angus, you know. It's almost like a different kind of side of like a teacher, you know, giving advice to a student almost. And obviously the scene I was surprised also where it's like it becomes like a bit funnier after once Mary comes in and they try to get like the big dessert thing and everything. I loved how like just that whole dinner scene played out and everything.
It was really great. There is a quote towards the later half of the movie that I think perfectly encompasses the story and everything that you had been watching with these characters unfold. Paul's character has this kind of monologue where he says, well, the end is, you see, history is not simply the study of the past, it is an explanation of the present. And it's like, it encompasses Paul's character, the exchange between him and Angus, what's been going on this whole time. It really is just, these guys, older people, have lived through their lives, you know, they and in that they learn from their past, you know, and that's basically what Paul's character is doing for Angus, is explaining it to him, you know, explaining it through his eyes, his life, that, you know, I'm trying to help, you know. And I just really liked it. Yeah, just
that is a very hard-hitting line for sure.
Really amazing writing. This whole movie just has really, again, subtle writing, yet it is conveyed in such a great way by the actors that you really aren't expecting it, and the emotion delivers. Yeah, again, like I said, the characters, they nailed it with the writing, the interpretation, the acting, and man, if I heard that a sequel was coming out, or I'd watch it 100%. Like, these characters are some of my favorite in terms of subtlety, portrayals, and things like that. Like that. Normally, I'm not a big subtlety guy, yet this whole movie, the way it was directed, the writing, I'm like, there was no other way they could have went about this. Like, I think this was the perfect amalgamation of everything involved in this movie, delivering this story. This is like a one-of-a-kind kind of story and experience, you know?
Exactly, yeah. It's definitely like a lightning in a bottle story for sure.
Yeah.
And I love just, the ending is so incredible too. I love when, just their last interaction, and instead of like a hug, I love that he just gives him a handshake, you know? It is probably like one of the best handshakes I think I've ever seen in a film, honestly, you know? And I love when the kind of bully character that we saw at the beginning. I like that he comes back and he's all like, has like his face is like super red from the ski incident. That was like a great little callback thing that I loved.
I couldn't have been more surprised with everything. By the time the movie was coming to a close, with the sacrifice that Paul's character makes for Angus, really hits hard. And past that, he's driving. You can tell that he's okay with everything. You know, he's been living this life. He's come to terms with everything, you know, and throughout the movie, there are subtle hints to that more could be going on behind the scenes in terms of Paul. One of my favorite kind of subtle moments was the medication. He sees Angus is taking this medication and he already knows what it's for, you know, and they have that shot of him. He pulls out the same prescription and it's like, damn, that says a lot. Yet by the end of this movie, and with the last shots of Paul, where he's driving, pulls out more of the alcohol and drinks, I don't think that's necessarily sad. I think for me, I see it as like he's okay with everything. You know,
he's content.
He's content. He's come to terms with his life. He's not sad. He's not, and maybe he is suffering from, you know, mental health issues and things like that. But I think he's more so okay with it. You know, he's not trying to escape some of the darker corners of his life. I feel like he's already done that, you know, and I love that shot of him just, you know, he's in the car and he just pulls out the bottle
and he just spits it out.
I'm like, that's, to me, like, that's such a awesome moment for a character like that. And I didn't feel sad or depressed for him. If anything, I felt like
it was like a sense of relief.
He's better off without being at that school, you know, because I think he wasn't as appreciated, because now that you see what he'll do for the kids and everything, it's like he's way better than that school, you know.
Exactly, especially too because he's been there for such a long time. Also, you know, he even mentions like he went to school there, you know. So it's like I almost see it as like he's letting go of the school, you know. He's going on like a different endeavor, you know. Hopefully, I kind of hopefully see it as like he's gonna finally write his book that he's been teasing towards throughout the film. So,
overall, closing thoughts. I just really couldn't have been more surprised. I couldn't have been more caught off guard. Again, it is a true testament to the writing, the performances, that you nailed the characters so well that, again, I could watch these guys do anything and I feel like I'd be entertained. That is a big testament to great writing. And that is, for me, one of the biggest pluses of this movie. Yeah, I just overall really loved it. Super heartfelt, super emotional. Probably some of my favorite in terms of subtlety in movies.
Definitely.
Again, I'm not the biggest fan of subtlety. I think what it is it's an exchange between subtlety and effectiveness. And if you can balance both really well, you have a very unique film or story by the end of it. And this movie, I think, is very much proof to that. So yeah, I can't recommend this movie enough. Like, definitely watch it if you haven't seen it. I really hope you get the same feelings that I felt while watching this movie. Man, it just surprised me, and I can't wait to watch it again. Again, some of the critiques I have is obviously the beginning with some of the actors and stuff. It wasn't really working for me. So if you guys are watching this and the beginning's not really working, just give it 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I feel like that's when it starts to kick off, you know? And it very much kind of pertains to the story. Is like these guys can't really be themselves around all these other people, you know? Yeah. And it's like when they get those quieter, closed off moments,
it's more personal.
You get to see who they really are.
Yeah.
Those are my only gripes. Just definitely stick with it. Rating wise, probably thinking like a 9 or a 9.5.
Oh, wow.
Really enjoyed it. And
nice.
Can't wait to watch it again. Yeah.
Yeah. I would just say for critiques, just not a lot. I would just say There's a specific scene with like the Miller High Life scene that felt like kind of forced product placement, like the dinner scene.
Yeah.
I just was kind of like, that part didn't really do it for me all that much. And then I would just say, just noticing it, watching it now, it's just like that first 10 to 20 minutes is kind of a little too slow.
Yeah.
But I think it could have been a lot better, or just at least a little shorter, just compared to everything else in the film. But I would just say those are my only two complaints with the film. But yeah, other than that, I really love it. I could see this being like a future Christmas classic. I really love this film a lot. I think it's easily one of the best Christmas films I've seen in a long time, at least for talking new Christmas films. Paul Giamatti's performance is fantastic. All of the performances are great. I'm glad Divine Joy Randolph got an Oscar for her performance in this. She was fantastic. Just a great overall message of just being kind to one another, especially during the holidays. Very, very important message, I feel, especially now, And I was also just kind of surprised how optimistic kind of the film is too, which I would like to see more of in the future. So yeah, score-wise, I'm thinking like a strong 8 out of 10 for me. Yeah, I'm thinking like a high 8 out of 10. I love watching this film. I could watch it over and over again, but yeah.
Really awesome. All right, guys. I guess that will be it for this movie. Please check it out if you haven't. I believe I saw it streaming on Prime.
Yeah.
So definitely, if you're
give it a watch,
in the mood, check it out. And I feel like you'll enjoy it. Definitely.
Yeah.
Next time we are going to be talking about a profound Christmas classic. Really drives the point home of family in the Christmas time and the adversaries we can run into when we're going about our daily lives and the struggle of personal sacrifice over family. And what does that mean when you are in a hostage situation? We were watching Die Hard.
Woo! I haven't seen this one.
We're going to get into it here in a little bit. Some people say, is it a Christmas movie? Is it not? I have a very great explanation for why this is a Christmas movie.
I do too.
We'll save that for the episode because I'm tired of people saying it's not a Christmas movie. It's like, come on. Stop trying to kid yourselves. You're just mad. You didn't think of it first. It is very much a Christmas movie. And it's one of my favorite action movies, actually, of all time. And can't wait to get into it.
Nice, yeah. Die Hard. Bruce Willis. If you don't want to be spoiled for it, watch it before the next episode comes out.
Yep. All right, guys. Have a good one.
Good day, good night, mates.